Sisters who watch. Sisters who watch. Sisters who watch.
Killers of the Flower Moon.
Hey, y'all. Hey. Hello.
Hi.
Welcome to Sisters Who Watch.
Woo. I'm Shelby.
And I'm Laura. And we're sisters who watch everything. TV, movies, sports, concerts, and even 210-minute intense movies.
Yes.
We love to watch, and we love talking about it even more. Today we're watching
Killers of the Flower Moon. Martin Scorsese's true crime Western film.
Ow, ow.
Wow,
Okay,
big one.
Big, literally a big one.
Large.
Literally. Long. And before we get into it, our analysis, special PSA, please make sure you give us a 5-star review on Apple and Spotify. 5 stars, please.
5 stars only.
And make sure you subscribe to our pages there so you get automatic updates when we post new episodes. And make sure you follow us on all of our social medias, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube channel as well, all at Sisters Who Watch. Thank you so much for supporting us.
Appreciate
okay, Shelby.
Y'all.
Give us the background of this massive film, Killers of the Flower Moon. Tell us about it.
Let's dig into it. So here's the log line, y'all. When oil is discovered in 1920s Oklahoma under Osage Nation land, the Osage people are murdered one by one until the FBI steps in to unravel the mystery. So it's true crime, it's murder mystery, it's historical drama. It's giving you everything. Thriller, drama, sadly some violence. There's a lot happening in this movie. So this film actually premiered at the Cannes Film Festival in France in May and to rave reviews and was then released theatrically in October. And it was distributed by Apple Original Films and Paramount Pictures, which is a little strange. You know, typically like one studio distributes a film, but Apple, not being really known for theatrical movies quite yet, partnered with Paramount to help them distribute the movie around the world. And this is directed by Martin Scorsese, you know, one of the best directors ever. And this is actually his 10th collaboration with Robert De Niro and his 6th collaboration with Leonardo DiCaprio. So he has his muses, he loves working with them, and I know I was pumped to see them all together.
I mean, what a trio, a powerhouse movie just with the cast, with the directing. Everyone freaks out over Scorsese, De Niro, and Leo, right? I know that coming in, we all know that Scorsese is one of the greatest directors of all time. So, and you're a fan of his movies. I mean, I feel like a drama, like an epic, is not my favorite genre of film.
Really?
Yeah, I recognize that he is a legend, but I know that you're more of a fan of his past movies.
Yeah, he's made some really good ones. You know, classics like Goodfellas. The Departed is one of my favorite movies. Like he does like a good crime mob movie well. So if you like mob movies, Martin Scorsese is your guy. But this movie in particular was actually a passion project for him and Leonardo DiCaprio. They read the book, Killers of the Flower Moon, The Osage Murders and the Birth of the FBI by David Grann, and were like, we have to adapt this. So they started developing this in 2017, and now it's finally on our screens. So they spent a lot of time trying to make it happen.
This was an epic, as we've said. 3.5 hours. Have you seen a longer movie than 3.5 hours?
I feel like most movies I've seen that are really long are like 3 hours. Like Oppenheimer, right? That was 3 hours. 3.5? Was The Irishman that long?
Yeah, I remember that movie was really long, and it came out on Netflix. And I remember watching it and pausing it and having to come back to that movie like 3 times.
Okay, so I have seen a 3.5 hour movie, but I prefer not to. I love myself a 90-minute rom-com. Nice and quick.
Oh, yeah. Coming in, we knew that Scorsese's a legend, so we were excited to see what he, De Niro, and Leo are going to come together to do. Because you're not going to put all 3 of them in the movie and the movie's not going to be good, right? You're expecting the best of the best.
High bar.
Right? So A-list talent, A-list cast. Lily Gladstone, who plays the lead female character in the movie, Mollie. Had you seen her in things before?
I hadn't, and I know that she has been in other stuff. I just had not seen her before. What about you?
Yeah. This was my first time seeing her in a project, but she was wonderful. So happy that she's breaking out. Jesse Plemons. I know that yeah. Shout out to our FNL fans. Jesse Plemons, still out here acting, thriving in his career.
Yes, Jesse's come a long way from the FNL days. Like, he's been in a lot of awards-worthy movies, like Power of the Dog, and he's in the TV show Fargo. Like, he's out here working.
He's acting. He is acting. And also, Brendan Fraser makes a cameo as the attorney. John Lithgow also makes a cameo as an attorney. So, yeah, top-notch actors in this movie.
Coming in, I was really curious on, like, the indigenous representation. Obviously, this is, like, an indigenous story focused on the murders of the Osage people. I'm always here for representation. Of course, this is a tough one because throughout the movie, they're being killed. And so it's not the best light. You know, it's not how you want to be represented. But I was grateful that the story was being told. And it honestly was giving parallels to the Tulsa Race Massacre that affected Black people.
That's a really good point. They see us out here thriving our communities, successful, and they got to stop it. They can't take it. They can't take our success. Yeah, so very disturbing. I took a class in undergrad about Native American history, and it's just really sad and really dark. And oftentimes they're a group in America who have been just forgotten about and disregarded so much. So even though this is such a sad story, just that it's being told is a really big deal, right?
It's important.
So I was excited for that. I was also curious, right? Because Scorsese, right, is a white man. De Niro, Leo, the people who are basically the face of this movie, right, are all the white people. So I was curious also how he was going to highlight the indigenous representation, how they were going to be represented in the film.
One last thing I'll say about kind of expectations and background on the film. It has received so much critical acclaim. Like, critics love it. It's like getting a lot of Oscar buzz. But the performance at the box office was kind of soft. It earned $155 million globally. And you might think, oh, that's like a lot of money. But the movie cost $200 million to make.
Oh.
And that doesn't even count all the money they've spent on marketing. So it's currently not set to make a profit. So people have said that not necessarily a flop, but a box office disappointment. I have some theories on why I think this happened. You know, it's a 3.5-hour drama on murders of indigenous people, and it's a historical movie, a Western. So there are a lot of things that I feel like are ticking against it that might lead people to not go out and see it, which is tough because I think it's an important story that people need to hear about. But I'm not shocked that it didn't do as well in the box office as they thought. What about you?
I think they were thinking, oh my gosh, Leonardo DiCaprio, De Niro, Scorsese. They were like, people are just going to go and see the movie because it's them. But it's a 3.5-hour long movie. No one wants to sit through that, right? No one wants to sit through that, even if it is De Niro and Leo. It's really long. I think that is a big tick against it. And yeah, it's just a very depressing, dark story. And people like to be happy. People like to watch things that are entertaining and fun. And this is the opposite. It's educational and informative and important. But it's just, you leave the theater feeling horrible.
Sad.
You feel that, you leave feeling really sad.
Yeah. And I think what helped Oppenheimer was obviously the Barbenheimer phenomenon. Because you could say, oh, that's a long, sad movie. But it also was a meme. Like, it was a moment.
Yes.
Killers of the Flower Moon was not trending on social media like Oppenheimer was. So I just think it had, again, like a lot against it that made it hard for it to, I think, succeed.
Yeah, I agree. Oppenheimer was a lot more ambiguous. So the audience, took what they want out of it. Whereas Killers of the Flower Moon, it's obvious like, oh my gosh, this was horrific and sad.
Yeah, hopefully you're not on the side of Leo and De Niro's
Yay!
characters.
Woo!
Hopefully that's not the message you got from the movie.
No. I hope not. That'd be horrible.
Yikes.
Okay, Shelby, let's get into the themes. We've already touched upon it. Power, greed, racism. Woo! 3 super positive, happy things. Those are the main themes of the movie, right? It's these white people coming in to this Osage community, seeing that their land is now filled with oil, so they're oil rich, they have all this money now, this community. These people are coming into their community and destroying it for their own sake, for them to get a level up, for them to get more money. It's really sad. They're these little parasites coming in and destroying a community.
Yeah, you hate to see it. So for a bit of background, the Osage community in the 1920s in Oklahoma had oil on their land. So they were really profitable. They had money. They were living large and lavish. Didn't really have many cares in the world, but slowly, mostly I'd say like rural, working class or lower class white people start moving from like eastern United States and other places to places like Oklahoma. And they're searching for a better life and see, oh, the Osage people have a lot going on. So let me stay here and start to mooch off of them and see what they have going on. And it's sad. You start to have all these like white people come into their communities, bring things like alcohol and processed foods and like guns into their community.
Disease.
Oh, yeah, disease as well. Slowly and slowly, they start infiltrating into their culture. And it's almost like you said, a parasite. They're like leeching on everything and like taking things away. And it's so, so sad. And it's all because, oh, I want my American dream. I wasn't able to get it in Louisiana or New York. So I'm going to come here to Oklahoma for my better life and take what you guys have.
It makes me sick just thinking about it. Like, leave these people alone.
It's
leave
really
these
tough.
people alone.
And that's why I told you, made me think of the Tulsa massacre, because that was a very thriving Black Wall Street community. They had their own stuff going on. Black people running businesses, being doctors, literally don't have to think about anyone else. They don't need to rely on any white people. And they come in and destroy it and set it afire because they don't like that Black people have their own community and are thriving without them. It's literally the same thing that happens here. Except instead of just like destroying their community with like a fire or a bomb, they methodically start killing people. And they methodically start marrying indigenous women, so Osage women who have land rights to all the oil rich land. And they start marrying them, having their kids, so then they'll be entitled to it, and then killing their relatives so they won't be entitled to it. It is like so strategic and methodical.
It's so disturbing. Yeah, the whole movie was just so upsetting. And I saw that at Alamo Draft House and I was like trying to eat and like watch this. I was like, I can't. Because the opening scenes is like guns and shooting people up. I was like, I can't, like, so I don't know if it's still out, but don't see it at an Alamo Draft House.
Yeah, you probably don't want to be eating while watching.
No, you'll probably lose your appetite.
I think I saw it at AMC and got a popcorn, but barely ate the popcorn. Like, I was just like enthralled in the movie and couldn't really eat or drink anything. I was like, whoa.
No, you gotta have 100% attention for sure. And you see also in one of the scenes in the beginning, De Niro and DiCaprio, Bill and Ernest, they're talking about, the indigenous women here, the Osage women, they're so beautiful. Like, look at their skin. I've never seen that skin color before, all this stuff. And you're like, and you hear Ernest say during the movie, I love my wife. I love my wife. And it's like, no, you don't actually, there's no way. This is not love. You're fetishizing these women. You're systematically destroying their community and calculating a plan so that you can steal her money. You do not love this woman. You are being racist to her and her community. Racism is also at the heart of this film. It's just really sad.
And to your point, I think a lot of these men were confused. I definitely think Ernest at times thought that he loved Mollie. And I think Bill Hale, the mastermind, the villain of it all at times, like, oh yeah, these are my friends. No, they can't be your friends if you are trying to take their land and they're like women. And they can't be your wife, your loved ones, if you're going to poison them. It just does not add up. So I think they didn't want to think they were the bad guys. It's like, no, you were wrong. You've been greedy and power hungry and racist, and you have been hurting this community for your own gain.
In this movie, the sad movie, did you have favorite moments? What were some of the highlights for you?
I'll say it was hard to think of favorite moments. I had to think really, really hard.
Yeah.
Because it was a tough movie. But after thinking about it, there were some. First, I think in the beginning, seeing a wealthy, thriving indigenous community was beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
It was short-lived, but it was beautiful to see them riding in their cars and their wagons and having ceremonies with their family and like having nice meals and being driven around by white men. Like, that was crazy. I was like,
yeah,
Ernest picking up Mollie and driving her around. Like, you never see that. So I liked seeing them thriving, even though it was for a short amount of time.
I agree. That was cool. And you see them, one of the opening scenes is you see the oil coming out of the ground and you see the Osage community dancing around in the oil and just celebrating and so much joy. Like, we made it, this is our land and a miracle came from the ground. Short-lived, as you said. Short-lived.
There was some joy.
But good.
Little joy.
There was some joy. There was some joy. And I agree. We finally got some accountability during the movie because it's 3.5 hours, right? So the majority of the movie, you just see the most tragic things. Leo and De Niro plotting against the Osage. So the FBI finally comes to the Osage community. Finally. And investigates the murders. And we have to put this into our own hands, right? Because the Osage went to DC. Remember, they were invited to DC. And Mollie said to the president, she was like, please, they're killing us. They're killing us. You have to have someone come to Osage and help us. They're killing us. Following that situation where she was begging the DC, to send someone to Osage. So they finally did. Shout out Jesse Plemons.
Great character.
Tom White, FBI agent. And you see Ernest and Bill on their toes like, what are you talking about? What murders?
Investigating. What? No, natural
My
causes.
wife's not home. Yeah.
Crazy. Oh, yeah, they just naturally died of illness. Please.
Oh.
Please, you are poisoning these people.
So finally, we're seeing some accountability. So that was promising.
Completely agree. Speaking of accountability, I feel like it took Mollie a long time to realize Ernest was not the best husband. And too long, she almost died. But she finally ends up leaving Ernest after he's on trial for the murder of her family, and after she realizes that he was poisoning her. So it took a lot for Mollie to realize to leave him, but she did. So her leaving Ernest was great. She was like, no, bye-bye, I'm done with you. I'm going to take my kids, live on my land, and never see you again.
It felt like Mollie was, finally stepping into her own, getting rid of this toxic murder of a man, sabotaging everything. Remember when Leo stopped the private investigator, like beat him up? Remember?
Yeah.
Mollie was like, I need to find out what happened to my sister? And yeah, they beat up and threatened the private investigator. And I was like, I can't.
He was literally making her lose her mind. Like, sabotaging her at every step of the way.
The gaslighting. I mean, I can't even, just what he was doing was so evil. Like, this is your wife. She's like, I want to see what happened. I want to find out what happened to my sisters. And he is beating up the private investigator. Horrible.
I think Leo's character, Ernest, was so easily, like, convinced and used. Like, anything his uncle, Bill Hale, wanted, he did. So even if it meant, you know, beating up the private investigator that was trying to help his wife find out what happened to her sister, he was like, well, if you say so, Bill, I'll make it happen. Like, he just could not make decisions for himself. It was crazy.
No. Yeah, I totally agree. Because, I mean, Bill set up the relationship with him and Mollie. He was like, you go to her. You think she's pretty? You drive her. You drive her around.
He, like, didn't do anything for himself. Yeah, like, it was so calculating, and he was like, okay, yes, uncle. Whatever you say, uncle. Crazy.
So sad. So
sad. I also loved that Martin Scorsese had a cameo at the end. It's always fun seeing, like, the directors like, oh my gosh, you're in the movie. So that was cool. And it was a part of, like, a performance of the Osage murders, like, recounting it. So I thought that was clever, like, kind of recounting the story and, like, where everyone ended up. And when he was talking about it, you could see that he was even, like, emotional about the story. And I think it just showed, like, how much he cared about it.
Yeah, that final scene was definitely one of my favorite moments of the film, the last couple scenes.
Mm-hmm.
Seeing that performance and they're doing the sound effects, I thought that was really, really cool.
Mm-hmm.
And I also loved at the end, you see this circle of the Osage people doing a traditional dance and ceremony. Mm-hmm. I thought that was so beautiful, and it just is slowly panning up. And it just kind of shows, you know, and we still survive, and we're still here, right? Like, you can't dim our shine. We're going to wear our colorful colors. We're going to keep the traditions alive and still celebrate those who came before us. You know, these colonizers, they're not going to destroy our community. They can't, and they never will.
Should we move on to our least favorite moments?
Yes. Besides all the sad, depressing things we've already talked about.
I know. So not to belabor it, obviously the killings, the murders of the innocent indigenous people to get their land rights was awful. They were killing kids. They were killing women. They were killing men. They even framed Henry's murder to make it seem like he just killed himself because he was dealing with mental issues and alcoholism. Right. But no, y'all killed him. They killed Anna, and they're like, oh, she's a drunk. She's always trying to fight. She has a gun on her, trying to make it seem like she would bring it on herself. No, you killed her. So all of that was tough.
Yeah, all the murders, every single one of them. The plotting, rough. And we all knew that Bill something was wrong with him, but finding out how evil he was the headmaster. He was a puppet master of all of this whole web of killing. You're just like, the fact that people like him exist is just so disturbing.
Crazy. Because he was not doing the dirty work. He had all these minions like Ernest doing it for him. He was so powerful. He made the Osage think that they could trust him. They were like, we love Bill. He was always at their ceremonies, like, talking. And he's like, oh, I'm friends with Henry. I'm friends with all these people. Like, he's the worst kind of villain because he ingrained himself into their community and culture, made it seem like he was their friend, but was the puppet master behind the scenes. So it was devastating to find out all that he was doing.
And it was good to know that he did, you know, end up in jail, right? He did serve time, but he was able to get out early. Where's the accountability? Yeah. So, and then of course, Ernest just being manipulated so easily, especially when he was poisoning Mollie. That was so disturbing.
He was so supposed to be giving her insulin for her diabetes, but instead was poisoning her.
I remember the doctor was like, this will slow her down. So he put like some insulin and then a little bit of this. We don't know what it was, but it was poisoning her. It must have been some kind of poison. And she was putting a little bit in it every time. So it was like she was slowly deteriorating, which was so hard to see.
Like you, thinking about it again is making me sad. So
I
let's move
know.
on. The last least favorite moment, I'd say, were the courtroom scenes. This is where I think Scorsese could have cut a bit. I don't think we really needed to see that much of Brendan Fraser and the defense and the prosecution with John Lithgow going back and forth. Like, I don't really think we needed that. I think because, you get those kind of actors, you give them meaty things to do, but it wasn't needed.
I agree. The only part that I enjoyed seeing was Leo saying, like, yes, I did all those things. He told me to do them. And he pointed at Bill De Niro's character being like, he told me to do that. I did like that. But
That
I
was
agree.
good.
Everything else we didn't need. Okay, should we move on to our categories, Shelby?
Yes.
Who or what did you love to hate in Killers of the Flower Moon?
The fact that it was a long movie. It did not need to be that long, in my opinion. I think the length deterred people from seeing it.
Yes.
I also think it was a beautiful film. So I did like most of the parts. Like, I do think it was intense and long, but it was cinematically stunning, and they told like a very like methodical good story. The reason why they spent so much time in the beginning showing all the deaths and what was going on was to show how strategic Bill Hale was being, and to show how awful the situation was for the Osage people. So I do think you need a lot of that background. So that's why I think the length is in the love to hate for me. Like, there was some of it that was valuable, but the movie did not need to be 3.5 hours. There needed to be a better length.
I agree. I'm with you. The length, a lot of it was necessary. Regardless, it would have been long. But 3.5 hours to be sitting down in a theater. Like, I was moving around so much.
My
movie.
poor butt. I was like,
I know. I was adjusting, and the people next to me were probably so annoyed because I kept on moving and stretching. But it's such a long time to be in the theater.
Crazy.
So I totally agree. Something else that I have for love to hate today is oil. It's necessary. We need it in the world. However, the oil, it brought so much good to the Osage, right? They finally had wealth where the American government for so long has just devastated these indigenous communities, and a lot of them are so poor. So the fact that there's oil on their land was a blessing for so many reasons. However, it led to a series of unfortunate events, and the oil became an instant target on that community. These, low-income working-class folks, they're like, oh my gosh, we got to go to this community. There's money, there's opportunity.
I think that's fair. I think it's a good one. I think, similar to you, money could be a love to hate. Yeah. Obviously, you need money to survive. Obviously, the oil providing money for the Osage people was crucial. It was so important. They were then able to live a more lavish lifestyle and, take advantage of things that they can with new money like that. But that new money also led to fighting over their land rights. As with any kind of time period, money can be dangerous, and it can lead people to be very greedy. Wherever you look in history, when there's a power struggle, it's typically over land or money. Truly a love to hate.
100%. And now for our hate category, the men fetishizing the indigenous woman in the movie, nasty, gross, disturbing,
disgusting.
The illnesses that was plaguing the Osage community, and this is a huge issue for a lot of indigenous communities in the U.S. Illness is really bad. Alcohol is another huge issue that plagues a lot of indigenous communities as well. And you saw that in this movie too. It's just very, very sad. And processed foods, all the things that the white people are bringing in.
Ernest was like, tell them what you're eating. And she was like, sweets and chips. And I was like, oh my gosh, not candy. It was crazy.
I know. Classic.
Yeah, we should not be eating that. I completely am aligned, particularly on the illness piece. We saw mental illness. We saw physical illness. We saw people being poisoned. Like, we literally saw so many different kinds of illness. And a lot of the Osage people who were dying of illnesses were young, right? Like they were youthful, but either were poisoned or processing too many like bad foods or alcohol. So they were getting diabetes or like having mental health problems. Like it was just awful to see how like illness was
Right.
plaguing so many people.
And of course, guns too.
Something else
Bad.
Americans brought.
We love the colonizers. Yes. And of course, Bill, Ernest, Byron, all of the
Really
puppets
problematic
in
white men in the film.
all the puppets in Bill's plan just bad. Okay, Shelby, who did you love to love in this movie?
Mollie. I think she was an interesting character because she was a little passive at times, right? Like she was just trusting Ernest and didn't always stand up for herself. But you could tell she was like, okay, all this stuff is happening to my family. My sisters are being killed. Something's off. And I love that she took it upon herself to go to DC and make a plea for people to investigate what's going on in her community. I love that she hired a private investigator to look into her sister's death. I just wish she had left Ernest sooner, but I can't even imagine like what her situation was, you know, like what she was going through, all her family dying, dealing with diabetes, like feeling like you're about to die. Like she had a lot going on. But regardless, I thought she was like the best main character. And I was rooting for her. I was like, yes, Mollie, yes.
And I also really liked how she stood up for herself, because I loved when she asked Ernest, what are you putting in my insulin shots? And he couldn't respond because clearly it wasn't insulin, right?
Ooh.
So disturbing. But also it's like, that's your husband. You have no reason not to trust him. So it wasn't until the trial and the FBI agents came that she was like, something is wrong with Ernest. So I don't blame her for not leaving him sooner. How would she have known? Like she had to trust him. We also love Lizzie Q, Mollie's mom. She was great.
She was great. I loved how she was trying to still be there for her kids, even though she knew that she was like slowly losing her mind and like getting ready to die soon, because she saw like the owl, like she saw the bird, which was like a sign like, oh, my time's come. But she was still trying to advise her kids, like, stop marrying these white men.
I loved
they did not listen, but I appreciate her trying to save them.
Listen to your mom.
Literally.
And something else I loved in this movie was the cinematography, as we mentioned. There were some really cool shots, the end shot of the dancing. I just thought the movie was really well done.
Game time. Red flag, green flag, 1, 2, 3. Laura, question for you. Is it a red flag to marry someone for their money?
Oh, sugar mama, sugar daddy. I think it really depends. Obviously, in this situation, bad. Like Ernest,
flashing red.
Bill, like, yeah, the worst of the worst. Yeah,
very
their situation.
red.
Blinking flashing lights. Stop, red flag. Obviously, just marrying someone just for their money, that's bad. I would say that's a red flag. But if there are other things about them that, you know, that you like, and they also have money, then no, I don't
best
think
of both
that's
worlds.
A red flag. Yes, it's a perk. It's a great thing to have someone who is financially stable. But would I say just marrying someone for their money? You don't like anything about them, but you're like, oh, they're rich. It's fine. That's a red flag. If they're rich, why not? But you like some other things about them. I don't think it's a bad thing. Get your money. Get your bag, girl. Get it. So, but not Leo, not Ernest, not him. Shelby, tell me, is it a green flag to tell diverse stories?
Of course, 100%. We love diversity and inclusion, okay? We need that. We need more representative stories.
Yes, I totally agree. But what if that person is not from that community telling that story?
So basically Martin Scorsese telling the story. It is a really good question, and I think there are a lot of dynamics at play here. One, I think if you decide to tell a story that is not yours, you have to make sure you do the necessary research. You have to make sure you have like the buy-in from the community that you're working with and telling their story. Like, you can't just on your own like make that, because then could be tone deaf. It couldn't be well received. I mean, we have seen this before where someone, let's say, who's white is telling a black story and people are like, oh, that's not representative of like my life, or oh, I don't like how they told that, and that can come off really bad. I
Right.
think if you are passionate about the subject and educate yourself and research and get consultants and like do authentic casting, do authentic shooting, right? They shot this in Oklahoma, like on reservations. Like, I think if you do things like that to authentically tell a story and have buy-in from those communities, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I actually think in this case, the fact that you have someone like Martin Scorsese and actors like Leo and Robert like telling this, that speaks volumes. Unfortunately, if a up and coming indigenous director wanted to tell this, would it have gotten like a $200 million budget? Probably not.
No way.
Right? Would this many people have seen it? Probably not.
No way.
So sometimes you do need, right, allies, buy-in from like studios through, these famous white men to help tell this story. And it sucks that that's the situation we're in, but that's reality. I think it is a green flag, but it's dependent on how you go about it.
Right, I agree. It does seem like Scorsese was really, really passionate about this, and he really wanted to do justice for the Osage people.
Mm-hmm.
You can also think about it like this way. The book was also written by white men that it was based off
David
of.
Gran. Mm-hmm.
Right? So it's white men telling the story from a white man's perspective as well, right? I struggle with this. Obviously, I'm happy that Scorsese shed light on this story because it's so important and I did not know about this. I think it's both a red flag and a green flag. Like, as a black person, I wouldn't want a white director telling a really important black story. But I get it. I think it's hard. It's hard. I'm mixed on this one.
Overall, how are we feeling about this film? I know for me, it's definitely a watch. Such an important story that I think everyone should see. Yes, it's dark. Yes, it's long. Yes, it's intense. But go see it. Probably on Apple TV right now. So if you have Apple, you can go watch it at home. Pause a few times, take snack breaks, go to the bathroom. That'll help you get through it. In the theaters is tough for sure. But watch it in the comfort of your home like you did with The Irishman, and you'll be okay. I'll also say that the acting in this movie is amazing. I honestly think it's some of Robert De Niro and Leonardo DiCaprio's best work in years. Like, I was so impressed by their performances. De Niro was so convincing as a likable and then like awful guy. It was crazy. And Leo played like aloof, dumb, you can just use me to do whatever you want, but also I'm evil. Like, they both did a really good job, I think, of showing like nuanced characters. And then of course Lily Gladstone
100%.
was amazing. Like, I would see it for the acting as well.
100%. I agree. I think it's a watch. I think it was really well directed. The acting was incredible. Such an important story. I mean, wow. Can't say it enough.
Mm-hmm.
We need more stories about indigenous communities because, they're so underrepresented in media and entertainment. So this movie is really important. So go watch it. I think it's great. Some people, there have been mixed reviews from people that we've talked to, right? Coming into the movie, I was like, white director, white author that in which this movie is based upon. But so I was hesitant. And also during the movie, I was like, it felt like so much about it was centered around Leo, Ernest, and Bill, De Niro's character. And so many times I felt like we knew them really well. But besides Lily Gladstone, Mollie, I feel like we really didn't get to know the indigenous characters as much. So I do still have that critique. It felt like it was more about the white people in the film rather than the community.
Yeah, I spoke with someone about the film and they had a similar critique. they didn't like the movie at all and felt that it was clearly written by a white man. Like, they went away with, oh yeah, a white man wrote this, a white man directed this. And I was like, yikes. I
Yikes.
was still able to appreciate the movie, and I really liked the movie, but I totally understand what y'all are saying. Like, I think it's a fair critique.
All right, Shelby, onto our What to Watch segment. What are we watching?
Yes, I'm definitely watching awards buzz for this film. We are in peak awards season. The Golden Globes nominations were recently announced, and Killers of the Flower Moon got 7. And then the Critics' Choice Awards nominations were announced, and Killers of the Flower Moon got 12. So it's really crushing with these nominations so far, and I'm sure there's more to come. I think it's definitely going to be a contender for Best Picture and a lot of the acting categories. If y'all are looking to support other Indigenous stories, I have some recommendations. First of all, there's Reservation Dogs, which is like a popular TV show on FX. I've seen some of it, but need to finish. And it recently had its last season, so definitely go support. It's on Hulu, and it's been critically acclaimed, and I know it's a really good representation for the Indigenous community that people have been happy about. And then there's also an upcoming film on Netflix called Resball. I actually know the execs that were working on this movie.
Ooh.
And I think it's either coming out next year or the year after, but it's like a coming of age film focused on a basketball team on a reservation. And just like a really cool premise and very like authentic casting with an Indigenous writer-director. So definitely will be cool to support that once it comes out.
Amazing. That sounds like a really great story.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I hope y'all enjoyed this episode of Sisters Who Watch. Go make sure you leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify,
please.
wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube page as well as Spotify and Apple so you get all our updates when we drop new episodes. And go follow us on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Give us a follow there to check out all of our content and stay up to date on all things SWW.
Yes, we're everywhere, y'all. And we want you to DM us. We'd love to hear from you. You can also email us at sisterswhowatch@gmail.com. Please let us know what you think. We're grateful for y'all and your support.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Stay watching.
Stay watching.